Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Vinny Costa, editor of Street Muscle Magazine, and your host of the RodCAST, the all-encompassing car show where we talk about all things automotive. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Greg Acosta, editor of Engine Labs and all-around tech guru. What's going on, Greg?
Hey, Vinny, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I'm doing pretty good. So we started pre-recording the show on Thursdays. So usually whenever you ask me that, I'm like, oh, I'm great. It's Friday.
But, so now there's a little bit of a delay. Man, we're at the end of Thursday. It more or less is Friday.
Yeah, I have to think about it, but I'm still good, man. How are you?
I'm good. The weather has cooled off a little bit out here. It's nice not to have to run the air conditioner, at 11 o'clock in the morning. So it's good. Man. I'm super good this week.
Yeah, the weather has been really, really good to us this week. Unfortunately, I've been at home in the office working, but this weekend's gonna be really nice. Take a little road trip in the van. Yeah, so that'll be nice. The mobile hotel, as it were. But anyways, this week we have a really fun guest on, a good buddy of both of ours. He's the editor of Chevy Hardcore. I'm sure all of our fans know him. Randy Bolig. Can we bring him on, Greg? There we go. What's up, Randy?
Bringing Randy.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
So far, so good, but it's still early.
Yeah. Hey, man. It's really good to have you on. Thank you so much for making time to do this.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you guys, our viewers, will remember Randy from episode 1. Episode 1 of the RodCast. We introduced a lot of our editorial staff at Automedia. Randy is lucky enough to run Chevy Hardcore, one of my favorite titles that we have. And Randy, I feel like I shortchanged you on that episode because we were tooling around with our format and we were doing a lot shorter episodes back then. We didn't give you a whole lot of time to give your background. And so I wanted to give you the forum again to do just that and explain how you got into the industry and how we're lucky enough to work with you now.
Oh, well, appreciate it. I don't know how lucky you guys are, but I do appreciate every moment I get to work with you, that's for sure. But let me start off by, what's that RodCast sign back there, Vinny? I've never seen that before.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. My buddy over at Huckett Fab here in Temecula, he made that for us on his water jet table, and he was kind enough to help us out. And
so that's a metal cutout.
Yeah, it's all metal. I'll take it down so you
Very
guys
cool.
can get a closer look. But it's like an aluminum backing plate, and then like steel on the front. But check him out, man. Huckett Fab. That's HUCKIT FAB. Yeah. Huckett Fab.
Oh, geez, I noticed it. I thought it was kind of neat.
Hey, thanks, Randy. I appreciate that, man. But
I guess you want to hear about how the old timer got started in this, because
yeah, man. I really like hearing. I like hearing stories from back in the day.
Well, and then we also get to hear that magic little M word, the Mopar word.
Oh yeah.
Yes, you will hear a little bit about that. It actually started for me. What's that in? It actually started for me back in, I'd say the early 2000s, late 90s. I was electronics technician at a injection molding plant, pharmaceutical plant. I actually worked on programmable logic controls, setting up timers and sequencing and maintenance on them. And I did it for a year or so, and I hated it. Before that, I was driving tractor trailer. Well, it was nice to be home, but it still wasn't what I wanted. So I went to Walmart. I bought a $250 camera kit. It was a Canon with a lens, and I bought a bag. And I started going to every show, every event, and finding cars and just shooting pictures. I had never shot a picture of anything in my life until this time. I made a lot of mistakes. Now, you got to remember, back then, I was shooting film. I spent a lot of money on a lot of film for a lot of pictures I couldn't use.
Wait, this was late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah. Okay. They were just still film then, man.
Yeah, that's true. Like, you were paying a fortune for like a 10 megapixel camera.
Yeah, you got it. And I was freelance. I wasn't paying that kind of money for anything.
I'm just going to jump in real quick because, Randy, you and I are going to have to talk cameras off later. But we're going to have to talk cameras. I still have some film cameras that I like to play with. So.
Yeah, so you were working with like a 35 millimeter film camera or something?
Yeah, an SLR. Yep, it was an old Canon Rebel.
Okay.
But I would go to events, and I couldn't afford a hotel room, so I'd sleep in my car for the weekend.
Wow.
And I would get up in the morning, I'd line cars up, and I'd shoot and go home and get the film developed. I'd pay to get the film developed and send it out. It finally got to the point where some guys at Peterson I actually got to work with Peterson Publishing, which is a really cool part of my life. Jeff Stunkard was the editor of Mopar Muscle at the time, and he called me and asked me if I would come down for an interview. Well, they flew me down to Florida. I lived in Pennsylvania at the time, and him and Jerry Pitt took me out to lunch. The big spenders they are, we ended up at a Wendy's. Now, the first thing Jeff says to me is, what do you want out of this job? And I looked Jeff in the eye and said, I don't want a job. I want a career, and I want yours. I was hired on the spot, and then here I am ever since. It's been, almost 20-some years later, 18 years later, here we are still doing it. I've moved.
There you go, kids.
Now no more publishing with magazines. It's all digital on the websites, and it's the hardest job I've ever enjoyed.
Yeah, I will totally agree with that 100%, man. And for our younger viewers who are listening to this, that's how you do it, man. I mean, things are obviously different nowadays, but if you're into it, what is that, basically the advice that you would give, Randy? Just let your passion fuel you.
You can still go to Walmart and buy a decent camera for a few $100s and start taking pictures. Yeah. The hard part is getting somebody to answer an email at a publishing house like what we're at, to say, hey, I'm interested in doing this. What do you guys think of my stuff? I've answered every email I've ever gotten just because somebody did for me.
Right. Well, but you had a leg up, right? Because you were already into hot rods. So you knew what was cool, like at least what was cool to you.
Yeah, I've actually bought my first car when I was 14 years old. That gave me 2 years to get it running and get it ready to go. It needed body work. It needed a paint job. It needed a transmission. But on my 16th birthday, I was driving my car to school.
What was it?
67 Ford Fairlane, 289 automatic.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Stacked headlights?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very cool car.
Yeah, it was
very, very cool car.
I have very fond memories of that car, but it was in rough enough shape. It didn't survive more than about 9 years, and it was done.
Now, where are you from originally, Randy?
What's that?
Where are you from originally?
Pennsylvania.
Okay.
The north central part of it, Williamsport, little northwest of Harrisburg.
Okay.
So we got up there.
Yeah. So you moved on from the Fairlane. Jumping back to your automotive career. So you started with this kit camera. You landed the job by being persistent and letting that passion kind of fuel you. Then what happened next?
Well, they called me one day after the interview, and they offered me the position. And I told them I had to think about it and talk to my wife. She came home from work that afternoon, and all I said to her was, they made me an offer. What do you think? And before I could even say any more, she said, show me the beach. That was in 2001, and we moved to Florida, and we've lived here ever since.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So what part of Florida are you in now?
History over the years, I've seen them. I actually remember a time I had a business card that had 5 emails on it. I would just cross one out, write the next one in, cross one out, write the next one in. At the bottom, it actually said over. You had to flip it over for the last email address. So you started out, you moved down to Florida. What was that like? What was the transition like? And was it anything like you expected? When I lived in Pennsylvania, I had a small 3-bedroom apartment I lived in, but the garage was 40 by 70. It used to be an ice factory. The walls were lined with 4 inches of cork. So it was never, very hot in there. It was always cool. And I had the place just filled with parts and car stuff. And when I go to move, I have to move down here to a 2-bedroom apartment because we weren't sure how it was going to go living in Florida, whether we were going to enjoy Florida, whether the job was going to pan out for me. So I had to unload everything. Talk about a nightmare. I had guys, big newspaper flyer. Hey, big sale at my place. And guys just come in and started loading up truckloads of stuff and taking it away. Now there's times I really wish I had a lot of that stuff back. Yeah,
I bet, man. But at the time, were you a big Chevy guy, or was it all Mopar stuff?
I've always been an all-around car guy. I just lean a little bit to the Mopar side.
Gotcha.
Everything I own now, it's muscle stuff. I am not into driving. My daily driver, is a new pickup truck, 3/4 ton diesel truck. But I've got my old stuff in the garage. My wife's got her old stuff in the garage, and we just enjoy them. They're both Mopars right now, but it is what it is. Yeah,
but that we're kind of jumping ahead here, but you've been a part of some really interesting trends as of late, and I want to get to that in the Chevy arena, right? Chevy hardcore. But how did that end up happening? So you're running a Mopar mag, and you're in Florida. What does your life look like at that point? What's your workload like, and what does it look like compared to now?
You mean when I was with the print stuff?
Yeah.
Peterson, actually, it changed hands a couple times, became Source Interlink Media. It was a lot different then. You had a 28-day deadline where if you didn't get a story done, you didn't have stuff to put in the print, in the magazine to send out to the newsstand. With digital, I've learned that if you don't get it done, if you're a day late, it's not as pressing an issue as it was with the print media. I still have a hard time myself with being late because I always had to have stuff in.
Right.
But it came down to one time they called a bunch of us, all of us actually, into the conference room at the Source Interlink office, and every one of us got handed our pink slip papers. They were closing the office up.
Wow.
Everything went away. They were moving it all to California. Personally, I didn't lose anything in California, so I ended up staying in Florida. They closed up the office, and I took the year off. I didn't really work anywhere. I did a few little freelance things here and there, and I actually did a book for myself about new Hemi Challenger and Charger performance mods.
Very cool.
Out about 3 years ago, I guess it was, not 4 years ago now. But I took the year. Finally, one day I was looking for something. I forget what it was. And the Chevy Hardcore Position came up in my news feed. So I did a little research on the company, and I ended up calling Mark Gerhardt at the time, who was the president or whatever at Automedia. And I talked to him, and I came in for an interview and talked to him and Andrew Almazan, and here we are now.
That's awesome, man. And how long have you been with the company now?
Almost 5 years.
5 years, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it'll be 5 years in actually this month.
So I guess that brings us current. So when you came on, did you have any Chevy projects that you were working on?
I did not at the time.
Okay.
It did not take me long until I came on where I found my C10. I actually went out and I bought a 79 Chevy C10. It was a project. I had to haul it home in a trailer.
Nice.
But I did a lot of work to that truck. We did we repainted it. I did the interior, new rear end, transmission. I never touched the engine. It had 150 pounds of compression. It didn't need anything. I put a EFI system on it, a Hyperspark ignition. It's been a really fun truck.
What was under the hood? Was it a 350?
It was actually the factory 350.
Nice.
And it was like a champ. It took me everywhere. Air conditioning, cruise control.
Like a rock, baby.
Unfortunately, somebody came to my house here a couple weeks ago and said, "Ooh, I got to own that truck."
Is that right?
It had to go to the wayside. Find me another project now is the thing.
Hey, man, sometimes that's it. You have them, you enjoy them, and it's on to the next person to enjoy. And like they say, everything's for sale.
Well, no, it wasn't actually for sale. I got to admit, I did not want to get rid of my truck. I liked it.
No, okay.
But this guy came in and he had to have it more than I did. So now I just need to find something else to build.
Well, I was stoked on that project because I felt like you were into it before the C10 craze kind of took off. That square body, rather, not just C10s, but square body trend has just blown up, and now they're more popular than ever. I remember you used to be able to get them for pennies on the dollar, man. And now people want square bodies, want crazy money for square bodies, and we're starting to see those OBS trucks command more money, and it's an interesting trend.
I was going to say the market's going to get flooded right now with the OBS trucks because they're taking over right now. It really is. I'm not going to say the square bodies are being pushed to the wayside, but the OBS is just the new thing right now.
Exactly. Yeah, we have a lot of aftermarket companies that are coming out with new, interesting products to make those things more friendly to the enthusiast. And
that's the whole thing. The aftermarket support has just been astounding with these newer trucks. Before it was just thought they would never happen, and it has. Yeah.
So walk us through real quick. I know you mentioned all the things that you did on your square body, but at the beginning, did you go from the ground up and address the wheels and tires, suspension, then body? How did it go?
Well, the first thing I had to do was rebuild the suspension. It was basically a stock suspension, but it was the original suspension that was shot. So we tore everything out and just put OE bushings and stuff back in and make it really, handle like at lack of a better way to say it, a new 79 Chevy truck. It drove and handled nice. It didn't need any more than that for what I was doing at the time. And then the next thing was to sand it down and actually give it a squirt of color. And then went to the interior, and that's about it. It was a nice driver. That was my everyday truck. I drove it everywhere I went.
It was a really cool truck, man. I really liked it. So now what are you into? What's your new daily?
My new daily is a 3/4 ton diesel.
Nice.
Well, I'm into camping. I do a lot of antique tractor pulling. I got a bunch of John Deere stuff that I pull and Cub Cadet stuff. I needed a diesel truck to pull things around.
100%. That's what I was wondering. As you know, were you pulling that stuff with your C10 before?
No, I was using my wife's half-ton truck.
Okay, all right, yeah. I was gonna say, holy cow, man, that thing had lived a life.
What's that?
I was just gonna say, man, I'm really impressed with that square body, but yeah, I wouldn't subject it to that either.
No, it wasn't the way I had it put together. It wasn't set up to be pulling any kind of a trailer.
Right. So you mentioned that you had 2 Mopars in the garage right now. What I know that you've owned some really spectacular muscle cars. I'm curious what's in there right now, though.
Right now in the garage, of all things, the first project car I bought to build when I was at Mopar Muscle was a '67 Plymouth Valiant. I bought that car for $700. It sat behind a garage in North Carolina. I'm still friends today with the guy that I bought the car from. I go to his house and he takes it for drives, and we meet at car shows, and he's still a great guy. I get along great with him. That's
awesome.
The first thing I did was had to replace the floors from the firewall to the rear bumper. There was no floors in the car whatsoever. But at that time, nobody was making floor pans for this. So I had to find another car, cut the stuff out, and put it back into this car.
Gotcha.
So my oldest daughter actually helped me do that. I got pictures of her in the garage with me helping to weld and paint seal and all that kind of stuff. And I put it back together. Somebody had painted it paintbrush army green. It was hideous looking. But the first thing, I didn't care what it looked like. I just wanted to get it running. So I built a 360 for it, put the 4-speed in it and the 410 gear, and I just wanted to beat the crap out of it. I got to the point where I bought a Sneaky Pete nitrous system. It actually fit inside the air cleaner of the car. You couldn't see it.
That's awesome.
Bottle in the trunk, threw it in the duffel bag with an old sweatshirt over top of it. And I'd go around, I'd make a little bit of money around here with it.
Yeah, I'm breaking hearts, man.
It was a lot of fun. Hey, and then for some reason, I got the bright idea that I needed to rebuild a really nice car. So I completely stripped it down. We took the body off the K-frame out of the front of it, put it on a rotisserie, and completely redid it top to bottom, inside and out. It's just as shiny underneath as it is up top. And I shouldn't have anything like that because the shiny stuff is now covered by a lot of burned up rubber underneath the rear wheel well of the car. And it's just, it's been a lot of fun. I actually drove to Herb McCandless's shop. Used to be a pro stock racer in the 70s. And I was up visiting him one day, and we got bored and put a roll cage in it. We've done a bunch of different things to it. I built an E85 motor for it one time. It was a 12.5 to 1 compression E85, solid roller. It was something I should not have built. But the car was run in 1090s with a 4-speed car, and it was just, it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
But I took that motor out, and I put the 360 back in it without the nitrous, and it's nice, a 1190 car right now.
1090s with a 4-speed, either you're a real good driver, or that's a real fast car. Maybe a little bit of both, huh?
I'm lucky.
Yeah.
I get lucky when I go for third. It would work for me.
I got you.
But 1190 car with the 360 in it, tonal ram. I left a tonal ram on it that I had with the E85 motor, and it looks cool and it's fun.
So you got that one. What's parked next to it?
Next to that is my wife's car. She's got a 75 Dart Sport, it replaced the Duster. It's the same body style as a Duster. Hers is actually a 340 with a 6-pack, 4-speed, 410 gear car.
Original?
No, it was actually a slant 6 3-speed on the floor. So she found that years before we bought it. The original owner had it sitting under a carport, but he didn't drive it anymore. It was in a trailer park. Well, the gentleman died, and the people at the trailer park knew that we had done cars, and they called my wife and wanted to know if she wanted that car. I was away at work. She calls me up and says, "Well, how much do you love me?" I'm like, "Why? What'd you do?" "Nothing," she said. "I bought that Dart you told me I'd never get." So I got home from my trip, and I had to go pick it up and bring it home. I got it running, left the slant 6 in it, got it running. We went to a cruise night and came home. As soon as I got in the garage and parked, she gets out and says, "You will be changing this engine for me." She said, So we did a 360 6-pack motor and put a 4-speed behind it. And she's having all sorts of fun now.
Perks of being with a car guy. That's cool, man.
Yep.
That's really
cool. We actually got married on the stage at the Carlisle Chrysler Nationals, and it was her idea.
That's awesome.
We figured everybody we know is going to be at the event. We don't have to worry about scheduling conflicts. We don't have to worry about getting everybody in one location. We were all there.
That's really cool. That's something you'll never forget. That's for dang sure.
At the time, I worked at Mopar Muscle, and I bought cake for 400 people, took it back to the subscription tent, and everybody came by the tent. I served them a piece of cake. My wife and I gave them a piece of cake.
That's awesome.
That's
really cool.
Us, everybody I meet at this becomes family.
Yeah.
This isn't a job to me. I'm just a schmuck with a really cool job. I get to meet so many people, get so many cool things. It's unbelievable. I get paid to do this. So it doesn't get any better.
I totally agree, man. I
used to have to take vacation to go to car shows.
Yeah. So I was doing this since before I was doing this. You know what I mean?
Now, it is a two-edged sword. I mean, if I go to a car show now and I'm working. It's not that I'm sitting behind the car in a lawn chair.
Yeah, that's the tough part, man. Going to shows and things, it's totally fun. But when you're working, it's a different thing. I totally get that. Randy, I want to ask you something. So this came up recently.
I know where we're headed.
No. Not just yet. But this came up recently. What I feel like is a lot, right? I've bought and sold a lot of cars, and I always miss them when they're after I get rid of them until I get the next thing. Okay, and I have a buddy right now because I'm a big Harley Davidson guy, and so is he. He's getting ready to make a big sale, and he's had this bike for a while, and I could tell he's like bummed out about it a little bit. But he's using it to, fund other projects and things like that. I'm curious, is there any one vehicle that you sold that you really regret or you wish you could get back?
Other than my first car, just because of it being my first car, I'd have to say my 70 Super B.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah.
That car, the problem I had with that car is it was too nice for me. I enjoy beating on stuff. And that car was not one to be beat on. It was a SEMA style build car. And for me, it just did not, I was afraid to take it anywhere, do anything with it. I had to trailer it everywhere. And that wasn't any fun. It's actually in a collection right now up in Detroit.
Is that right?
Yep. It's in an air conditioned building in a collection up in Detroit.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm like you, man. I like those cars. They're beautiful to look at. They're pieces of art. But yeah, I mean, you look at my projects, you look at Snake Eyes, my 72 Monty. I love that car. I probably,
by the way, I had one of those.
They're great cars, man. They're big, beautiful, powerful cars. And I love that one so much because I don't feel bad about thrashing on it and doing donuts and driving it in the dirt and just having a good time with it.
I actually had a 72 Monte Carlo right after out of high school, and the gas gauge didn't work.
Mine either.
I ran out of fuel one night. I'm sitting on the side of the road. I walked to the gas station to get a gas can and get gas. And by the time I got back, the car was totaled.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Someone smacked it?
Somebody's just destroyed it. Sledgehammer beat it and destroyed it. And
oh, that's brutal, man.
Yep. It was bad. The quarter panels were rusted on those cars. And let's face it, back in the late 80s, nobody's making quarter panels for 72 Monte Carlo, so I had to make them. I bought flat, pounded them out, bead rolled we made quarter panels for it in shop class.
You're a bad man, Randy. That's awesome.
No,
that's a huge panel. That's like
it was
on those 72 Monties are just massive cars. But so I know that there's a few interesting things that I want to talk to you about, Randy, that have to do with your personal life, past and present. And I don't want to jump ahead. I don't want to dive right into the thing that I'm dying to ask you about. But you mentioned just a moment ago about doing some vintage tractor pulling and stuff like that. Tell us about that. What's that all about?
I grew up on a farm boy. I was always around farm tractors, and my dad was a John Deere guy. So I'm into the John Deere stuff. I've got a 43B right now, a 41A. I sold my H, and I'm looking to buy another A. But the B is one that it's the family tractor. When I was growing up in school, my dad had this tractor. He had found it bought it from the original owner. It was in a barn. He bought it for, I think it was like $500 and brought it home. He fixed it up, put wheels and tires on it, and painted it and made it look a nice looking tractor. Well, he was raising 3 kids. Something had to be sold at one time, so he sold the tractor. 4 years ago, I found that same tractor up in New York State. I tracked it down. I bought the tractor back and brought it down and gave it to my dad. He's now got his tractor back.
That's awesome.
it was kind of fun because on my way home from the trip, I bought a matchbox of a little John Deere tractor. And I set it on the table. And I called my dad, told him I had him something for him to come over. He comes over and he sees the little tractor on the table. And he's looking at it. Yeah, he says, it's kind of cool. Looks like the one I had. And I left the garage doors open in the back. He turns around and just looks and, Junior, what did you do? I don't know, Pop. What'd I do? That's something I'll never forget when he saw that tractor again. That
had to feel just the best, man.
Don't tell anybody, but when he and I go to the tractor pulls, I've never beat him. And there's a reason. I'll never beat my dad.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's something that you guys share. I grew up on a dairy farm. So you would think that I might know a little bit about tractors, but I don't know the first thing about a tractor, Randy. What's the difference?
A Cub Cadet my grandson and I had built with a 12-horse Kohler engine. This is the tractor he pulls. The sled weighs 6,000 pounds before he starts pulling it. As he's going down the track, the weight's coming forward, and he's doing really well with it. It's got Kevlar clutches in it, chrome moly drive shaft, but it's a lot of fun. And so, according to the whole tractor for him, I think it's less than $1,000. And the smile on his face as he's going down the track with the front wheels off the ground is just the best thing for me.
Yeah, I bet, man. This big, powerful piece of machinery. So there's a couple questions I want to ask you about it. The first is, what's the difference between an A and a B that you were just talking about?
About 12 horsepower, and the A's bigger.
Okay.
The John Deere B from the factory came with roughly 12, 14 horsepower, and the A came with another like 20, 24 horsepower.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, and what time frame was that? Or are they still classified as A and B?
They don't make them anymore. Now they went to number series, and it's all changed.
Gotcha. So that's only for vintage.
They're 2 cylinders. The engine lays on its side. And they just back and forth.
Interesting. How did tractor pulling become a thing?
2 farmers decided the one had the better tractor.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Just like drag racing or anything else, I suppose.
I mean, just a guess for me. I'm assuming there's probably 2 dealers in a certain area that wanted to do a marketing scheme, and they decided to show which tractor was better to the local farmers.
I got you. That's pretty cool. So, Randy, in your younger days, you had some really cool cars. You were having a good time. You're out in Pennsylvania. Before you got into all this, automotive journalism, you had a couple of interesting jobs. One of which I'm concerned with because I love rock and roll, man. I love music, and I really want you to tell me some of your best stories as security for a couple different bands, right? What bands were they?
Actually, I was a private contractor, but I worked security. I've worked with Blue Oyster Cult, Molly Hatchet, and Fuel.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Molly Hatchet and Blue Oyster Cult.
I remember, this was in the early 90s. It wasn't the stadium stuff anymore. Those days had passed. It was, there's fairly large venues, but it wasn't a stadium stuff anymore.
Yeah, but those guys still like to party.
Oh, yes.
So how'd you get into that?
I was working as a bouncer at a couple of different nightclubs in the areas around Pennsylvania, and somehow a promoter got my number. I'm not sure how it was anymore. I don't remember. And he'd asked me if I'd be interested in doing this when, different bands had come to the areas at different venues. And I told him I would. And that was an interesting job. You met a lot of interesting people doing that. A lot of people I should probably forget, but I haven't. There's been a lot of things that happened that I should probably forget, but I haven't. There's probably a lot of things that happened that I probably shouldn't even talk about, but I digress.
Well, so for our viewers and listeners, Randy is not an unassuming guy. He's a big guy, and intimidating might be a word that people would use. I can only imagine back then. Were you like a sports guy? Did you play sports growing up?
I actually played football and wrestled in high school. I did worked out at the gym a lot, and I used to be 6'1", 275 pounds. I could bench press 400 pounds. Now I weigh almost 400 pounds. Can't press my 270. It's just
holy hell. Yeah, so no wonder they wanted you to come
My
work.
My dad and I, when we would change engines in cars, we would literally take a 4x4, lay it across the fenders, take a chain, and lift the engine up out of the car and set it down.
Oh wow, man! Yeah, It's just good eating, man. That's some farm boy stuff. I like it.
We had to work at stuff.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So you're doing security. Give me one your favorite story, Randy, please. I want to hear your favorite story.
I would probably say one of the strangest things to ever happen was at a Molly Hatchet's concert. The place was so full, we had to stand on podiums we'd put around the venue. And as I'm standing on the venue, there was this, as you put it, unassuming woman starts dancing in front of me. Now, I have never seen a woman like this wear spandex and fishnet.
Okay.
Let's just say I had to relocate from that position because things were getting kind of bad for me. I was with a girlfriend at the time that probably wouldn't have been happy with what was going on.
Uh-oh.
I can't say much more about that, but the one that really sticks out to me was we had trouble with a gentleman one night and we were escorting him to the door. And as I was going out, there was a bar to the right-hand side. And I don't remember the girl's name, was Dominica, attending bar. I said, Dominica, I need you to call the cops. I said, this is not going well. And with a straight face, she looks at me and goes, what's the number?
Oh, wow.
Like, we try 911. I mean, that's all we need.
Yeah.
The cop shows up, Chad shows up, and we're outside of the club. And he's telling this gentleman, I'll tell you what, if you walk away, calm down, walk away, we'll forget this ever happened. Nothing will be written down. Nothing's going to go wrong. You can walk away and be done. This gentleman starts mouthing off to the cop. And I don't know how he kept his job, but he proceeded to put the gentleman in the back of the car. And whether it was planned or not, this gentleman's head bounced off the roof of the cruiser. This guy's still yelling at the cop as he's bouncing into the cruiser. And they hauled him away.
Yeah. I bet he doesn't remember that.
Pre-body cam days right here.
Sure he doesn't, but it was always the little guys that get wound up the most. The bigger guys were never really an issue.
Yeah. I asked to hear your stories because, before I did this, I worked in private security as well. And I bounced a few times and it's one thing to be a part of the party. It's another thing to be the babysitter at the party. And
that's the thing. I mean, I was a private contractor. As you know, whether you consider me working for them or with these bands, I was there to do a job. I wasn't there to be their friend.
Right.
I was there to take care, make sure nothing happened. That's, it would have been neat to hang out in the bus longer than what I did at times, I guess you could say.
Right.
That wasn't part of my job. And
right.
I'm one of those, I have a job to do. I do my job.
So, so when you were there, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, Randy, but, you always see like these movies and, MTV behind the scenes of these bands where they would be performing on stage and they would say like, picking young ladies out of the crowd. And then like, security would go and say, hey, would you like to come backstage? Did they never ask you to do anything like that?
I was never privy to any of that. But then again, you got to remember, this was, the early 90s, that stuff had, these gentlemen were getting older.
That's a good point.
Whether that was still part of the plan or not, I don't know. I'm sure it was. Case in point, spandex and fishnet, but we'll let that go.
Right. That's cool, man. Thank you for sharing those stories with us, Randy. I know that it might be a little bit risky for those involved, but I appreciate it. But hey, so Randy, I want to come full circle, man. You've shared a lot of your personal life with us. I want to come back to your professional life, things that you have going on with Chevy Hardcore. The plan and also something that I want to talk about is your audience on Chevy Hardcore and how you connect with them and how you really tap into what they want to see and hear.
Basically, I'm one of the guys is the way I look at it. I'm not somebody sitting in an office somewhere that's just writing about stuff he's read about. I do this. I work in my driveway. I work in my car. I go to events and I hang out with guys. I find out what people are interested in reading. Right now our main focus is like third gen Camaro and older. That's 90% of our audience. Now I have noticed a lot of LS swap stuff is really being important to a lot of guys. EFI stuff is really getting important to a lot of guys. They want these older cars, but they want them to drive similar to their newer late model cars. They want the reliability. They want to enjoy them. They don't want to get to an event somewhere and have to change spark plugs or adjust points. They want to enjoy these things. I'm noticing a lot more. It's not guys sitting behind lawn chairs anymore. They're enjoying their cars. And that's me. I enjoy that.
Definitely. I think that's probably the first step. I know that. Have you had any pushback at all? Like in the early days of the whole LS swap kind of craze, right? Did you have any pushback from your audience if you posted something about that, or?
Surprisingly, no. I mean, right off the bat, I was really impressed at how well received it was. Now, you always have, those few guys that they're traditionalists, and that's great. I can understand that completely. And I am to a point, if it's a Coppola Camaro and somebody puts an LS in it, they're going to get a thrashing from me just as much as anybody else. But if somebody's got a 69 Camaro with a slant 6 in it and they want to modernize it, by all means, man, go for it. Have a blast with the car.
I'm curious because I'm lucky that, Street Muscle, it's kind of like the catch-all. We do late model. We also do all makes and models as far as domestics are concerned. Do you ever feel like kind of burnt out where you're like, oh, another, first gen Camaro?
Let me say right off the bat, I don't think I could ever get burned out at this.
Okay.
I just don't see that happening. That being said, it is refreshing when I see something I haven't seen before.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
That's the way I take on it.
Yeah, definitely.
It gets to the point where I'm ever burnt out. Maybe this is something I don't need to be doing anymore. And after this many years, I don't see that happening in the near future.
Well, when I say burnt out, I meant more like burnt out by seeing the same models, models of cars.
That's the problem. You may see a row of Chevelles, but anymore, they're not all the same. There's always different somebody's done that catches your eye.
Definitely. I'm curious where you see. I know you said that third gen and previous. What do you think is going to be the next trend? You saw that square body thing taking off, and you kind of got in on it early. What do you think is going to be the next hot thing for Chevy guys?
That's going to be a tough one to predict, actually. I know there's not many of them left. Probably the same situation as square bodies were, but the G body guys are getting really vocal about stuff. The mid '80s Malibus and Skylarks, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's
what goes on with those. I think those are going to be some really neat platforms for guys to build some really cool stuff.
I've kind of fallen for them myself, man. Colonnade cars are really cool, and and I didn't used to like them very much, but those late 70s. Just even the ones that aren't Chevy, you're talking about I don't know what Skylarks and things like that.
Yep,
they're pretty cool.
I've always had a soft spot for like the 79 and 80 Malibus.
Yeah, definitely.
I did own a 74 Chevelle one time, that was a really nice car. I enjoyed that one. I'd love to have another one of those.
Yeah, those Oh, that's the difference. So the 79 and 80, and I think 78 as well, the Malibus, they have the single headlight. They don't have the
square headlights.
Yeah, I like those. Those are pretty cool.
Yep.
But so I know that Greg had a specific question for you, and I'd like to make some time for him to ask you now. Greg?
I'm under the gun.
No, actually, I have a couple things, because you were talking about, being a Mopar guy. And I know Mopars traditionally have not enjoyed the aftermarket that like Chevrolets and even Fords have. And I mean, we even made a joke earlier about Olds guys because they're probably the reddest of the redheaded stepchildren. But do you see the aftermarket, the availability of aftermarket parts driving trends? Since you have, you've gone from Mopar stuff, which is a little bit niche, to Chevy, which is probably the most prolific brand.
To say they drive the trend, the aftermarket, I'm not sure, but they're on top of them, if nothing else. It just, like with the square body stuff, they've been really popular the last couple of years, and the aftermarket has been very good job at supporting that. So whether they were ready for that to happen or whether they saw it early and jumped on and made sure it was taken care of, I couldn't say. I don't know on that.
that question, I don't mean to interrupt, Greg, but that question actually reminds me of another question that I wanted to ask you, Randy. It seems to me like Chevy and Dodge FCA do a fantastic job of like protecting their heritage brands within their brand, right? And no offense, Greg, but Ford kind of sometimes does not do that. Yeah.
Mach-E.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I got a cough.
But we have seen Chevy do some interesting things as of late. Like you were talking about Copo earlier, and you said, oh, how, you know, if somebody were to swap a Copo, and they did the e-Copo in, I think, 2018. And they have like, you know, they had an e-crate motor concept over in SEMA 2019. And so they're doing some interesting things, but they're not, I don't know, trampling on that heritage, right? How important is that to Chevy guys compared to Mopar guys and Ford guys?
Mopar guys, I've learned over the years, are more traditionalist. They really focus on stuff being, I don't want to say correct, but very close to being original and correct. They're very, very adamant about that. That was one of the things I noticed with my Super Bee. If I would go to a non-judge show, like a People's Choice Award, the car would no mentions at all. But if a judged event where they had split up by stock and modified, then I do okay.
Interesting.
Mopar guys are very traditional. They want it the way it was supposed to be.
What about Chevy guys? I know, obviously, you know.
I see that crowd as 50-50.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Well, and that kind of leads into the other question I kind of had was the whole LS thing. I mean, obviously, LS is, I mean, it's big enough that we have our own magazine for LS guys.
We got
right?
LT going to come over next.
Yeah,
true.
But do you think that the LS craze brought more people into the Chevy muscle car fold, or do you think it's pillaged from the older SBC guys? You know, the older, you know, I guess more traditionalists. I mean, did it change their mind? I
would like to think that it brought in some new people that, you know, to be interested in the Chevrolet brand. But I'm noticing a lot of guys, they've had these cars for years. You know, they've been sitting behind them at car shows. And they're seeing this new LS swap. The LS swap now is covered by the aftermarket so extensively. It's easy to do an LS swap in a Camaro or Chevelle or an Impala. And guys are now putting those in so they can have their classic that drives resembling, you know, with their late model car. You know, they've got the EFI, they've got the electronic controls. They're enjoying their cars a lot more because of it.
Well, and arguably, I mean, where it used to be that where a small block Chevy part would say $100, the small block Ford part would be $150, but now you have the LS part that's $12.
Yes.
And the Mopar parts are $300
if you can find them.
If you find it. You know, there are guys in the Chevy marquee that they are traditional as well. They want a traditional small block Chevy, traditional big block Chevy, but there's an aftermarket company out there now that's making an LS look traditional, and I think that's helping a lot of those guys get over that.
See, that surprises me.
Yet, but it is happening.
See, that surprises me because I would feel like putting a dress-up kit on an LS, that would be like the biggest slap in the face. Because you know what I mean? Like it
has made a living partially with carbureted intakes for LS engines. Guys still want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a carburetor, I feel like that's a comfort, like a blanket for some people.
Well, it was,
you know, that's
to hook up. Now with all the aftermarket support electronically, I can see that, you know, not being as popular.
Yeah, as soon as people realize that self-learning EFI really is easy.
With that, they can leave the LS intake on, and different companies sell a control box. You plug it in.
Yeah,
it's all plug and play.
Yeah, it's, and I mean, I know how fiercely loyal, let's say, the Chevy guys can be. I posted a couple articles that have gotten me some flack from.
Don't be shy, Greg. Get to the point.
Vary.
Get to your question. I want to hear it.
I don't have a question. I mean, I see what they do. They're mad. Like I literally feel like I upset an entire segment with that fist fight video from Holdner.
Give us a little backstory on that, Greg, and then the response that you got.
Well, I mean, it was the 80s, you know, 5-liter engines. So it was the 305 TPI and the 302 Windsor, the EFI 302 Windsor. And he ran them both on a dyno, stock, did head cam intake ran on both of them, ran them on the dyno, supercharged both of them, ran them on the dyno. Every single time they were about 5 horsepower apart. Like, I mean, the curves were identical. It was really impressive. But it was always 5 horsepower in the Ford's favor. I don't see that as a big giant win for the Ford, but man, did those Chevy guys feel it was unfair to them. Whoo! Like, I don't think it was.
Well, what did they say whenever you had?
Well, I'll say this: there's a reason why there's a DZ302 article that went up today. That was the thing they all said. Why don't you try a DZ302?
So what'd you convert the DZ to, Greg?
A Boss 302.
Boss 302.
Well, I didn't do it. Holdner did it. Holdner was listening. Richard's sitting there reading all the comments, like, and then he pops up every now and then, goes, "Oh, what? I'm sorry." You know, he's sitting there getting ideas from what everybody's saying. Like, so if anybody thinks he doesn't sit there and read the feedback you give him,
yeah, well, kudos to him.
That's the thing I'd like a lot of people to realize is when they reach out to us and give us comments and stuff, that lets us know what people want to read. If we
absolutely
what they're looking to read to find out and learn, we don't know. We have to guess at it. So that's the thing. I read everything that comes in.
Speaking of viewers, drop some comments in the comment section below and let us know who you want to have on and what you want to see on the magazines.
Yeah, one thing I found, and I know you have some similar articles, Randy, the casting number deals. I feel so bad when I get an email from somebody and they're struggling. There's a part number they just can't locate, and they're looking to me for help, and I'm like, you have the entirety of my knowledge sitting on that page ahead of you. I'm not a smart man, like, but I mean, I've actually been able to help a few guys, and that feels pretty good. But I know you get that too, because you have the Chevy casting number guides. Is that still as popular?
Research and see if I can get an answer for them, and if I can't, I'll let them know. I apologize and sorry, but I'm in the same boat as you. I can't find out.
No, Chevy Hardcore has some fantastic articles up, like the GM 10-bolt spotter's guide, the 12-bolt spotter's guide.
A lot of reference stuff for guys, yes.
Yeah, that's really good stuff, man. And I notice because they're also posted on Street Muscle that those are just recurring articles that people are constantly going back to and referencing. That's pretty cool.
And I like doing that. If it's something that guys can use continuously, I'm all for it.
Wow.
Well, and then you're great also at the Throwback Thursdays. God, I love your Throwback Thursdays.
Like, really digging those, and it's nice because let's face it. You read something on the internet, if you don't bookmark it, in just a week, you've moved on to something else and it's forgotten. So if I can bring another article up that's a year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, whatever, and just do a little snippet piece. Hey guys, do you remember this one? You need to check it out, and it's doing really well. Guys are looking at them.
Yeah, it's fun to read. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. My Thursday mornings, I head over to Chevy Hardcore and see what's going on because I know Thursdays are the throwback days, and I like the throwbacks now.
Hey, today's Thursday. What did you get one up today, Randy?
Yes, I did.
What was it?
Oh Lord, I don't remember now. I've been moved on to other stuff.
Well, we schedule our articles in advance, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I actually did that article on Tuesday, so.
See, even though we're digital, we still have what we call magazine time.
Kind of. Actually, it was choosing the correct shock absorbers for your car, whether you wanted to do a coilover, a gas shock, an air shock, or that kind of stuff.
Still relevant.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Different mounting styles and what you need to look for and all that.
That's awesome. Randy, that brings up, what do you have going on for Chevy Hardcore right now? What are you working on? What can the people look out for in the coming weeks? And yeah.
I'm trying to cater a little bit to like the new guys in the hobby, 101 type articles. This is what you need to figure out to get started in, like, say, drag racing is my next article coming up that I'm working on. EFI stuff. I'm always game for doing EFI stuff. Different, theory pieces kind of with manufacturers about products. Does this really benefit somebody and how can it benefit them? That kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. So check back, ladies and gentlemen, ChevyHardcore.com. Hey, Randy, I don't want to put you on the spot too much here, but
which means he's going to put you on the spot.
So no more square body. does that mean that we're going to see another Chevy Hardcore project in the future?
I'm not going to say no.
Okay.
I just don't know what that's going to be.
Gotcha. All right. I didn't know if you had something in mind, if you were like on the hunt for something specific or anything like that.
Well, at one point in my life, I had a bunch of Chevelles in the garage, 69s, 70, and that kind of stuff. And we may go back to that, or I may get another Monte Carlo. I don't know yet. We'll have to see what we find.
Okay. All right. I see you, Randy. I want to just give you the forum real quick to plug anything that you want, Randy, before we let you go. Yeah, so if there's anything that you want to talk about specifically, please, the floor is yours. Otherwise, I've had a great time talking to you, man.
Well, basically, I just like to reach out to everybody. Like I, reiterate, please let us know what you want to see. Whether it be me, Vinny, Greg Acosta, any of us, we want to know what you guys want to read about, and we will put it together to make it happen for you.
Certainly. That's 100%. That's what we love to do. That's our job. So,
like I said, it's the hardest job I've ever enjoyed, and I get to do this every day.
Yeah. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Randy Bolig. Check out ChevyHardcore.com. Check out EngineLabs.com. Check out StreetMuscleMag.com. Everything on Power Automedia. Randy, thank you so much for coming on the show, telling us some really great stories, and sharing your knowledge with us, man. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Later, Randy.
Peace out, buddy.
Oh man, it's always a good time talking to Randy.
I know, man.
He's I swear, I like getting to room with him at the trade shows. That's always a great time. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's great because he's got so many stories, and not just stories like entertaining, but he's crossed so much.
He's a wealth of knowledge, man.
Yeah, vintage tractor pulling. I didn't even know that existed before I met him. That is one of the coolest things in the world.
I know, man. That's why I wanted to ask him about it. I was like, dude, I don't know the first thing about it, but I know they got some engines and they're pulling some stuff.
And I know it's cool.
Yeah, it looks cool. I want to know more about
he's talking about his grandson pulling 6,000 pounds with 12 horsepower.
Yeah, right. That's gnarly. But yeah, it was great to have Randy on. I enjoy talking about everything with that dude, music, cars, whatever. And he's always cooking up cool stuff, really informative, educational stuff on Chevy Hardcore. That's what I've noticed is that's his MO.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. He's killing it over there.
Yeah, man. Greg, before we go, you got anything you're working on Engine Labs? I know you just had that article go up today that we were talking about a moment ago. What can the people look out for in the coming week, etc.?
Actually, I have a cool article that should post on Tuesday. Recently, I attended. It was a webinar from AERA. It's an Engine Builders Association. They had the super webinar. It was completely free to anybody who wanted to be there. And I know it sounds like I'm speaking in past tense, but that's because they actually released the recording to anybody who wants to see it. It includes 4 guys. Billy Godbold, Lake Speed Jr., Keith Jones, and Ben Strader.
Very cool.
And these guys literally, they each gave a presentation on a specific subject, and I'll kind of recap that in this article. But I highly advise anybody, if you read the article and you look at it and you go, hey, that sounds interesting, go watch the webinar, even if you just watch that chunk. It was mind-blowing. Of course, when Billy Godbold speaks, you try your best not to let your brain leak out your ears.
Yeah.
Because he is just
That's what I was going to say, man. You say Godbold and you say Lake Speed Jr., and I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to learn something. I just shut up and listen because you're gonna pick something up.
Well, literally after being there for the entire webinar, I the day ended, I sat back, and I needed like 30 minutes just to let my brain reset, because I'm sure it was operating at about 107 degrees, because it's like when your computer is just getting shoved with it. It was
a lot of tabs open, but it's just downloading, man. I remember Lake Speed Jr. came to the office one time, and he gave me this total download on oil, everything oil. And this was when he was with Driven, and dude, he was just. I came out of that meeting knowing things about oil that I didn't even know. I was like, man, I thought I knew a little bit about different weights and viscosities. No way, man. These guys do a deep dive into all things tech, which is pretty cool.
And what's really funny is all four of those guys are friends. Like they know each other. They've worked together on a lot of projects. So just seeing them kind of banter back and forth, you pick up stuff. If you're paying attention, you're like, whoa, wait, what?
Yeah, exactly.
It was so anyway, to come back to an actual point, instead of me just rambling, I'm putting up the recap of that conference. That will obviously have the links for you to go see it if you want to see it. Like I said, I know 5 hours is a big chunk for a lot of people to just devote, but if you can do it an hour at a time, it's worth it.
Dude, I think a lot of people are at home and, there are a lot better things to do with your time than watch Netflix. That's all I'm going to say. You can learn a lot, Yeah,
if you compare this to Netflix, and I love my Netflix, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, for sure. But self-improvement is pretty good too.
And there's stuff that, Ben Strader and I, we talk a lot about different stuff. But his what he talks about is just stuff that you never even think about, like breaking down the exact amount of time you have in one engine cycle at 10,000 RPM.
Wow.
It's like you never even consider the fact that you have 12 milliseconds to do everything you need to do in.
Jeez. Okay.
And I hope I'm saying that right number, because like I said, it was leaking out of my ear at the end of it.
Yeah, he's going to watch this and he's going to message you and
oh, of course he is.
Right? No,
but it's all in his presentation. It's stuff you never think about, and then think about the fact that you're getting it for free.
Yeah,
you're not paying for a course. Because that's his job is to basically give you information.
You got that going up sometime next week?
Yeah, Tuesday, hopefully.
Very cool.
That's what we're scheduled for right now. But
right on, man. Street muscle.
What about over? Yeah, what do you have?
So we're doing a really cool article. We worked with Holly and the guys over at Torque Storm, my buddy Chris, to flesh out basically when we did the supercharger install on Snake Eyes. It is a bolt-on kit, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's all that you need, right? You buy the kit from Torque Storm, but there's obviously a lot of accessories that go along with it, and that's why we partnered up with Holly and MSD and these other parts manufacturers to get the story title is every accessory you need to supercharge your ride. And so basically we cover replacing the entire fuel system from the carburetor to the cell that we have in the car now, and fuel pressure regulator and why all those things are necessary when you're dealing with boost. And we do a deep dive on all that stuff.
That sounds like a really cool article, because I think a lot of people, especially like newer into the hobby, they think you just slap a blower or a turbo on, and because that's kind of what the internet makes it seems like, right? You just slap a turbo on, you make 1,200 horsepower.
Exactly.
Significant amount of supporting modifications.
I think for late model cars, it might be slightly easier, but there's still things that you need to do. And then when you're dealing with an antiquated system, like a small block Chevy that has a mechanical fuel pump, then you're gonna need some accessories that go along with that blower. And so this does a deep dive into that, and we'll have that going up sometime next week. The usual feature articles on some rad cars, man. Got a really cool Mopar going up this week, and other than that, man, the usual.
Well, that's the cool thing about our jobs. The usual there is no usual. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Cool cars, cool parts, tech articles, interviews with interesting people. It's a good time to be alive, man.
It really is. Think about it. Like on Engine Lab side, we go from Aston Martin 1,000 horsepower naturally aspirated engine to, I don't know. What was the thing I did before? Oh yeah, Boss 302 versus DZ 302.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking about 1969 engines.
We get to do some cool stuff, man.
Yeah, for sure. This whole hobby is cool.
Like Randy said, for our viewers, listeners, if there's something specific that you guys want to know or see or hear about, all you need to do is leave a comment in the comment section below, and we'll do our best to accommodate it. And that goes for our websites as well. There's a comment section at the bottom. If you leave, feedback on any of the articles in there, we read all that and we take it into account, and we can use that with our partners or with our fellow editors to flesh out interesting, cool stories for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, we pay attention to comments. You have to. And if you don't, you're doing a disservice to your readers.
Yeah, there are outlets that I think maybe don't listen to their readers and viewers.
Names or anything, not to point any fingers, but
they're out there. We do a good job though of monitoring what our audience likes and wants. So keep that in mind. Drop a comment. Let us know who you want to have on the show next, and who you want to hear from. Every Friday, noon. That's where we're at, man. RodCAST Live. I'm Vinny. That's Greg. Wait, wrong way.
Nope. Yep.
That's Greg.
I'm over here.
That's Greg. This has been RodCAST Live. Today we have Randy Bolig, editor of Chevy Hardcore, on. That's it. That's our time. Peace.
All right. See ya.